the links for Gab, Odysee, Chute, or to support the channel on the various links. Oh, also join the Discord and get on Gab. Gab is it is the freest speech platform available right now. There's nothing quite that compares to it. This is good if you're an accelerationist, because what this is, and a lot of the stuff the left is doing, is one, it's creating the things they claim to be fighting against. Like they're tilting against windmills, but the windmills are actually coming to life, or they will very soon come to life and turn into dragons. And two, like, what is this saying? It's saying that, like, this whole experiment in multiculturalism and diversity is failed. Like, it's been a complete failure. And, like, you don't have to be a far-right tinfoil hat person to look at this and go, yeah, this has clearly been a failure. This isn't working out in any shape whatsoever. And a lot of this is these people who think, I don't know, they think they're doing good, they think they're do-gooders, but they're, like, genetically unable to not walk out the door and step on their dicks. And causes they just go through society throwing grenades everywhere they go, and maybe some of them really do think they're doing good, but you're saying that you're saying what you're saying is everyone needs to find their in-group preference, their identity, and when you've got one group, the most hated group in America right now is those people of European descent. It's becoming very clear to them that they need to find their in-group preference, their in-group identity, and advance their own interests as a group of European people advance for their own identity. And if you told me I would be saying this 10 years ago, I would have heard you out. I wouldn't have knee-jerked reaction to it. But it just would not have sunk in the way that recent events have made it sink in. You can't, it's like game theory. You can't have some groups of people who have in-group preference and are advocating for their own interests, and then another group that's not, because you'll just get stepped on. Anyway, so what's going on is, of course, in Seattle, the West Coast, Oregon, Washington, California are just kind of off the hook, but Seattle and Portland are on a different level. So an elementary school in Seattle has canceled its annual Halloween. Now, Halloween it's a pagan holiday. It's a European holiday. I think it's mostly a Northern European holiday. But yeah, it's a Norse, I guess, or is it maybe just, I wouldn't go that far. It's just a Northern European holiday, which has come to be a European holiday. Yeah, it's uniquely European. And now they're canceling it because it marginalizes. So what this is telling people, and this is like this is happening in Europe too, with events where they, like, there's sometimes where they paint their faces black, and it's like some kind of the merry man thing, the dance around the pole kind of thing. But it's like that's part of their culture. They do it in Spain too, but Spain's a little bit more based, and they're not giving that one up. But in England and Scotland, they're giving up these things, or wherever the hell they're doing it, because now they've got, dark people in their country, and it's like, well, because they come in, all of a sudden you have to give up your culture. It's like, no, that's a problem. That's a very serious problem. We don't want to give this up. It's like, yeah, you're going to give it up, and just give it up more and more and more. It's like, to add insult to injury, there's a lot of other stuff going on. So what this is telling people is, you white people, you can't do these things because of this other group of people. So, like, the inadvertent consequences, which I'm totally supporting because I'm on board the accelerationism, is you're saying, okay, well, you white people need to do your own thing. And we'll see where that goes. And it's not a good or bad thing. Like, it's not you don't have to be, wearing a Hugo Boss and all this kind of thing. It's not like that. It's more like mathematical. It's just watching wolves hunt. It's like, well, you're going to take the path of least resistance. They will do what they have to do. And it's like this grand stage has been set by these people, these Soros and Rothschilds and others who, like, they do have a lot of power, but they can't control the board. They can't control every movement on the board, and there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences. Anyway, try to get around that algorithm. So they're saying that Halloween is not for students of color, and they seem to be like, all these things do is like they're blaming people of European descent and making them the other, the hated other, and it's like people aren't stupid. I mean, we've seen this happen before in history, and it's not like it's like saying war is a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, of course, it's a horrible thing, but it's just something that happens. It's just something that happens. It has to happen. Wolves have to hunt whatever they're hunting. So the Benjamin Franklin Day, let's see how long that name stays. Racial equity, not equality, equity team decided to cancel the pumpkin parade. So you're telling all these white kids like, hey, we want to celebrate this European holiday. We need to have like a European Students Association, a European in-group preference association. I haven't seen those crop up yet, but it's something that's a matter of time. It's like the avalanche where the snow builds up, and once the coefficient of friction is exceeded, well, then you have this thing, you have this thing that's just waiting to go, and it just tumbles down the mountain, and all of a sudden you have this group of white people, and they look around and they go, yeah, we want to do these things, and we don't want this small percentage of people telling us that we're bad for doing these things. We'd rather just be apart from this group and do our own thing. And that's absolutely going to happen. I haven't seen it happen yet, but this movement, this CRT, this Bolshevik cultural Bolshevism has moved so fast that it takes time to catch up, but eventually people will catch up, because you can't hate a group of people for years on end and be very vocal about your hatred of them and expect them just not to do anything about it. So they decided to cancel the pumpkin parade, where students dress up in Halloween costumes after deliberating it for 5 years. Wow. Parents were told about the decision in a newsletter. Historically, it marginalizes students of color. The thing is, nobody ever raises their hand and go, no, it doesn't. This is just nonsense. This is just left-wing nonsense. Who do not celebrate the holiday. Well, it's a European holiday, so you're saying if we celebrate Europa's holiday, Europa's things, it marginalizes another group. Well, maybe that group just needs to go away, go do their own thing, and we need to do our thing. And like, maybe the schools we shouldn't even be together in schools, because clearly we have different interests and different values. And, to be honest, you got different educational styles. And I was listening to this guy, Ack Nation, who's on YouTube, and he's a real one. He's like, he is honest and he's smart, but he also doesn't have that, chip on his shoulder where people, don't, like, he's willing to shine the flashlight wherever he needs to shine it, in every corner. Oh, and he was saying, like, the different style in education between the different people, European, African kids, is, he's saying it might be so different. Like, to teach Black American kids, you might have to, like, the first period have to be sports to tire them out a little bit, then teach them a couple classes, and then they break, and they do like some sports and break, a couple more classes, then lunch, they do more sports at lunch, and a couple more classes, and they go home. And so the teaching environment might have to be different, because you might need to physically tire them out a little bit more than the European kids, because they're different people. And this is coming from a very black guy who's saying this. And he's not saying they're incapable of learning. He's just saying they're going to have to be taught differently. And he goes, at some point, you just have to separate the kids. They have to have their own schools. And like, he's just saying it. He's out and out saying it. He can say it. He's black. He's going to get away with it. He's talking about some real stuff. So of course, YouTube's going to ban his channel before too long, because YouTube doesn't want people solving problems. If the solution is this kind of thing, like, oh yeah, you might just have to separate schools for different people. That's unfathomable for them. They insist on people doing what we've done and getting the results we've got. So that seems to lead to the same thing of this, is like you're saying, well, okay, European kids, you can't take part in your history and your European culture because these wokety woke teachers are telling you can't. Like, listen, white people are very they're willing to bend over backwards, especially in a place like Seattle. But at some point, like, you put people's backs up against the wall, they're going to be like, okay, well, we just need separate schools because we want to do the things we want